Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the national headquarters of the Theosophical Society in America. My name is John Chianchosi. I'm the Director of Public Programs. And at this time, I'd like to ask that you turn off your cell phones and other noise-making electronic devices. This evening's presentation is being streamed live, and so I watch our friends watching through the internet, or I welcome our... I'm not watching them, sorry. I welcome our friends watching through the internet. The Theosophical Society promotes study, meditation, and service. We encourage open-minded inquiry into the world religions, philosophy, science, and the arts, and we have a deep respect for the unity of all life. Our goal is to help people explore the spiritual path so as to arrive at a deeper understanding regarding the wisdom of the ages. Furthermore, we feel this wisdom is not limited to any one tradition, and thus we offer programs from every tradition. I invite you to take one of our program brochures that has the remaining programs for the rest of this year. That covers the month of November and December. And the new program brochure will come out in about a month's time. So there's a lot lined up for you. You can also find all this information on our website. Just scroll down under programs and you'll find the full listing of both the lectures, the Thursday lecture series, the various workshops and events that we offer usually on the weekend, numerous classes and groups that meet here throughout the week, and quite a large and growing number of online classes and groups that you can interact with from the comfort of your own home. These are offered in the webinar format, which is kind of you sit at home, go on your internet, and you can actually participate in a group or a class. And they are especially, I think, useful for people who are not living in this geographical area and don't have the opportunity of coming to these programs. Now, the Theosophical Society is a membership organization, and many of you here may already be members, and we are always to have our members renew their membership. And occasionally, we are also very happy to welcome new members. So if you are not a member but feel that you are in agreement with the mission of the organization, please consider joining. It's the best way to support the work that we are doing. However, member or not member, it doesn't really matter. Everyone is always welcome to come here and make use of the resources, the library, the wonderful 40 acres of parkland, our bookshop, and of course all the programs that we offer here. Now this evening we have with us once again Quentin Young. He is known to quite a number of you. He has spoken here on numerous occasions, and even if you know him, I'll tell you a little about him. Quentin is a mixed blood Lakota and has been involved in the Lakota spiritual way of life since the age of 6. In 1989, he began keeping the chanupa, which is the pipe. He has participated in all 7 rites of the Oglala Lakota ceremonies and has sun-danced for over 20 years. Quentin has taught at the College of DuPage and has lectured at colleges and universities throughout Illinois, regarding Black Elk's vision and the Lakota spiritual way of life. Once somebody tested me on how I would pronounce Illinois, and I said Illinois. He knew I was a foreigner. Sorry. And of course, tonight, Quentin will speak to us on Black Elk's message to the world. Please join me in welcoming Quentin Young.
Homa Lakota, si jongbo hiato a chasha. Ete chekne ek tome akuno ashte. Oyataki, Toê낳wakaÅ, Meshmai Katinuha. What I said, and some of you have heard this before, is hello, and a few more additions to that. I said that I was a Lakota, a Sioux, the burnt thigh, that my name is a gentle spider. That's my spirit name because I carry a spider bundle. I'm known as a Niktomi man, a spider guy. I said that I refer to you as the people, and that I keep the pipe, the chanupa, for the people, and that it is sacred. This is the chanupa. We always keep it in a bundle or in a pipe bag, and when we are ready to work with it, to pray with it, we take it out of the bundle, and then we assemble the bowl to the stem. We keep them separate until it is time to pray with them, because these chanupas, they have no moral value. They do not know negative from positive. We give it its value. So we have to be careful that people around us who are having bad hair days, they don't get that in this chanupa. It's very, very powerful. It can do as much damage as it can good. So we have to be careful that we never put negative thoughts or feelings into this chanupa. So that's why we keep it separate. And then we also keep a plug of sage in it. The sage is designed to keep negative energies from ever entering the bowl. If somebody had a bad feeling about grandma or something, and they were around the chanupa, it would not affect it, because the sage would block any negative thoughts from entering that bowl. But if they prayed for grandma and cared about her, it would go through the sage into the bowl. So that's how we use these herbs. My ramrod. These bowls have to be cleaned after every use, and once you start using a coat hanger like this, it gets the materials from the pipe on it, and then it too becomes sacred. Come on out there. You can tell I wasn't a Boy Scout. And I like to bring the chanupa out when I first start talking, because when I hold this chanupa in my hand and I'm talking with you, I can only tell you the truth. I cannot lie to you. I can tell you things as they actually happen, and I won't add or take anything away from those things. I'm not here to put on a show. You can go to a carnival for that, I guess. But so as long as this bowl and this stem are separate, it's sleeping, it's not awake. But the minute I assemble this, now it's awake. But the sage blocks any negative energies from coming in. So the bowl is made out of a pipestone. It's a stone, and it's carved, and this particular one came from Minneapolis in the quarry where the red pipestone is mined. And only native peoples can go in and get that. They don't allow just anybody to go take pipestone out of that quarry. Sometimes a native person will make a trade and give it to somebody who is not native but wants to make their pipe. And he'll make a trade with them, and they'll go home and make their pipe from that stone. The stem, this is like redwood, different types of stems. This one is a little bit decorated, and it was meant as a ceremonial pipe. And then you have your personal pipes. Your personal pipes are ones you just keep to yourself and your immediate family, but your ceremonial pipes are used to help people to do sweat lodges. This is also a sun dance pipe. It has danced with me for 21 years now. And by the way, I retired last year. And part of my story tonight that I'm going to tell you is how that came to be. But before I get into that, I want to talk a little bit about the 4 parts of the soul. First of all, how many of you have read Black Elk Speaks? Oh, very good. If you haven't, get a copy of it. It's a great read. It was written in 1932 by John G. Neihart, and Black Elk was born in 1863, and in 1872 he had his great vision when he was 9. And that vision is still going on today. We're in the 4th ascent of that great vision. So we're still living the things that the Wakantanka told Black Elk. It's important that, because it wasn't just for the Lakota people, it was for the world. And it says that the first 2 ascents that the people walked on would be on the Red Road, the road of spirituality. The last 2 ascents the people walked on would be on the Black Road of difficulty and war. And when the Spirit told him, he said the first ascent was like this. It wasn't very steep, so it didn't take very long. Now, Black Elk thought maybe they were also generations, but I did some research and it took me months to figure it out. But this one is 13 years, this one was 15 on the second. This one was in the 40, 45, 50. This one, we're still in it, because it's a much steeper climb. And we've been at war. We were in the 3rd ascent, we were into World War I. By the 4th ascent, we went into World War II, Korea, Vietnam. It just went on, and of course we're still at war, right? Because Spirit said that would happen. Sometimes chaos is what gets our attention. We have to go through chaos. And that's what Spirit was telling Black Elk. Black Elk, as he was finishing his talk with Neihart, he felt that he had failed to bring the tree of life back to the people. And he did live to see the 4th ascent. He died in 1950. He went home. So he saw the 4th ascent, he just didn't finish it. He couldn't have stopped it. He couldn't have stopped what was going to happen. And the tree of life will come back. And it is coming back. And I write about it in this book called Mystic Visions, Black Elk's Great Vision Clarified. This tree is a Sundance tree. It was my 18th year dancing. And at the end of the day, after the first day, a rainbow, a triple rainbow fell behind the tree. And this is the main rainbow. And the other 2 were out here. That was the end of the first day. And that was so powerful. It said so much about what this dance meant to the Wakantanka and the people. Wakantanka, a lot of people say, well, who is that? Wakantanka, some people say it means the Great Spirit. But in its oldest term, Wakan meant mysterious. So Wakantanka means the great mystery. Because we like to think, we don't know what that is. We don't just want to work on it. We have no idea. So we like to think that the great mystery is just that, a mysterious thing, something that we can't put a thumb on. The other 5 spirits are the west, Wiokmiata, the north, Waziata, the east, Wiohimpata, the south, Itohakata, and the down, Unchimaka, Grandmother Earth. Tankashala is a term we use to show respect. So usually when I would refer to the grandfather in the West, I would say, Tankashala Wiokmiata, grandfather of the West. Those are spirits that creators said, you know, I need a volunteer to go out in that direction there and establish the West and listen for the people's prayers. So Weokmeata said, yeah, I'll go. And he went out there. And not the end of the earth, but the universe. And Waziata chose to take the north and listen for the prayers. And Weohimpata went to the east. And Itohakata went to the south. And they listened for the prayers. And Uchimaka, our grandmother, our mother, Ina, they listened for our prayers. And Wakantanka is in the up position. Now, it's odd, but when we start our prayers, when we start filling this chanupa, we always point that stem to the west. And we make that first prayer, so we'll the next one to Waziata, and Weohimpata, Itohakata. Then we go to the up. And oh man, I have a lot of people give me a hard time about, hey, I used to go there first. Well, I don't know. He said go there, so we're doing what Wakantanka told us to do. Wakantanka is, it is at the center of the universe. The west, the north, the east, and the south. And Wakantanka sits at that center. So no matter what direction we're pointing, Wakantanka is always there. And they're listening for the prayers. Now, maybe it's a real busy day, and the only guy hearing what I have to say is Waziata. So at least I got one out of the 7. So we always repeat the same prayer. We use chinchasha. We don't use tobacco in this chanupa. Chinchasha is an herb. It's the inner bark of the red willow, the red osier dogwood. In the winter time, only in the winter, you take that outer bark and you knock it off. It flakes right off, and then you scrape the inner bark off. It comes off green. But when it dries, it turns the sacred color red. We crunch that up, and that's what we put in that chanupa. We can inhale it. If we have a bad cold, it will help heal the lung. Try that with a lucky strike. It's so important that we respect this for what it is, and the gift that the red willow gave to us by allowing us to use this herb. It's not a drug. Traditional Lakota people, they don't drink and they don't use drugs. Southwest use peyote. It's part of their ceremony. But Lakota, traditional Lakota people never used the peyote. It wasn't a part of their way of life. It's not that we say it's bad, it's just not a part of our way of life. The 4 parts of the soul are important in that they represent our guardians, when a child was born, the midwives would keep all the dogs out of the area. They wouldn't allow them into the room or the teepee. And they'd keep their mouths shut. Because when that child takes that first breath and they open that mouth, that spirit enters through the mouth and divides into 4 parts. They say the first part goes to the placenta, the chikpa. And in the old days, the placenta was taken and put in the crook of a tree somewhere. And whatever animal ate that would be that child's ally for life. They'd be connected. Red ants, bears, whatever. And that's how they have that connection. Today, they're starting to do that again. They're starting to tell the doctors, no, we have to have that. And they put it back out. Then the next one would be the nagi. The nagi is in the aura. The aura is our guardian, the first guardian. How many of you have women's intuition? How many guys? Yeah, me too. I wanted some of that. Because our society always said women have intuition, but you guys, you don't know what you're talking about. But we all do. Even the deer, the 12-point buck, he didn't get those 12 points because he didn't have women's intuition. He paid attention to his guardians. The ones in the aura tell you what's going on around you and report to you. And if you're paying attention, you go, oh, okay, don't go there, don't do that. You better move that. And when we don't pay attention, what happens? It usually goes pretty south, doesn't it? That's your guardian, is your Nagi. Your ToÄ yon is the top of the head. That's your advanced guardian. If you're going to go somewhere, it will go ahead of you and come back and report everything is okay. Or don't go that way, go this way. I think it also has an awful lot to do with déjà vu. Because you walk into a room, you say, oh, I know I've never been here, but I've been here before. And you're into a conversation with somebody, you go, I just had this conversation with this person before. That's because this ToÄ yon was way ahead of you. And then when you get there, a lot of times, that's when you start remembering. Sometimes it's in a dream, you remember it. That when you, for me, when I was having a lot of déjà vu, I would always remember a dream. And that was the dream, was the reporting back to me. So that's a very important guardian. That is the guy that Black Elk sent, or when the sixth grandfathers called Black Elk, they brought his ToÄ yon. His physical body was crippled, so he could not leave his teepee. And a 9-year-old kid, how are you going to keep him quiet? You cripple him. They can't get up, they can't run around. And that's how they stopped his body from walking around. And then the ToÄ yon went and was taught the things that he needed to know to help the people in these 4 ascents. The NiyaÌ is right here, the bottom of the heart. The NiyaԻ runs the entire body chemistry. It's totally programmable. And we have to be very careful what we do and say, because it's programming every minute, every second of every day. I talked to an elder one time who had been to Vietnam, and he fought over there. And when he came back, he had PTSD. He struggled with PTSD, and he knew what he did wrong. He said, I should have put the war paint on. I should have protected my NiyaԻ. But because I didn't wear the war paint, I polluted it with the things I had to do. And it's suffering now, and I have to reprogram it. And it takes a long time, he says, to get that back and functioning. When the warriors went out in the day, they always wore their war paint. It had 2 functions. One, it scared the fire out of the guy they're coming at, and the other one was to protect the NiyaԻ. And when they came back after the battle, they came back with their heads down. They weren't proud of what they had to do. Because before the Europeans came here, they just had a game of tag. They'd go into, say, a crow camp. A Lakota would ride into a crow camp and steal our horses, which was a very honorable thing to do in that day. And as he rode out, he'd take his bow and he'd reach out and smack one of the crow, and they'd try to pull him off his horse, and he'd be hitting them with his bow as he rode off, taking their horses with him. And he was considered the bravest of braves because he didn't take a life. He counted coup. But when they started having to kill, because that's what the Europeans were doing, and in fact, native peoples on this land did not take scalps or torture. They were taught how to do that by the Europeans when they came here. And they became very good at it, as well as they became very good with a horse. I always have a little thing about duct tape. I say, you know, Sitting Bull would have used duct tape because they knew how to maneuver and use things that they came upon. And the horse was a life-changing experiment for them. And they became very, very efficient at the horse. The horse became a part of their family. It was like, it's like one of their cousins. And they also put war paint on their horses for the same reason, to protect their soul, their Niya.
When did they start using the horses?
Oh, about the time the Spaniards were moving north. Probably the late 1700s when they came up into the northern parts of America, and the horses were getting away from them, and they were catching them on the fields, and then they'd raise them and breed them, and became very efficient. They used to have to hunt the buffalo on foot, and they used a lot of what they call shapeshifters. And that is, certain people were better than others, and they would put a wolf skin on their body, and they'd walk on their hands and knees. And their spirit would switch their energy so that the buffalo would look over and he'd see a wolf, because he could sense every movement of that wolf, and that man, that shapeshifter, did everything the wolf was doing, because he became a part of that spirit. And then the wolves would just go alongside the herd and just kind of herd them this way. They wouldn't charge them because the buffalo would have their furry tails at that point. But they knew how to move the herds and line them up for the other warriors that would charge them and run them off a cliff. But when the horse came, they could get more specific, take out what they needed and not kill so many. So that was a very important change for them. They could carry a larger, their teepees became larger because the horses could using their troubles, could drag these teepees and different items that they were able to contain now, where before the teepees were much smaller because the dogs had to pull them around. All visions come from the Nagi, the ToÄ°wakaÅ, or the Niya. Everything that we receive, all the information we're receiving is coming in to these allies of ours. As I said, Black Elk's ToÄ°wakaÅ was the one that went and spent 12 days with the grandfathers. And he was shown so much. And then he tried to give NiyaԻ the vision. And when he gave him the vision, it was in such a way that he gave it as he received it. So a lot of people are going, what are dancing horses all about? Butterflies are very color. It was very confusing vision. So I had to spend many, many years studying this vision, 25 years studying it, thinking it, living it. And he was showing me things the whole time, because I believed that it was going to be a time when the vision would have to be a clarification for all people, not just Lakota know the vision, they understand it, but the non-Indian person didn't. And because it's for the world, I finally gave into it and wrote the book. It took me 2 years to write it, picking and plucking my way through it, because I'm not a typist. And English happened to be my worst subject. But then so was math, and I became an engineer, so there you go. I seem to take these challenges on. But I did write the book because I thought it was necessary. I added a lot of the things in the book that I experienced because they were things that I had to find out about before I could even tell you what Black Elk was thinking. So what I want to do is, I don't normally do this because I know this thing by heart, but I'm going to read it to you. And it gives you an idea of how it came out of chapter 9 called Visions at Needle's Eye. And it took place in July of 1995. I was with my, my daughter and this Blackfoot friend, Devin. And we went to the Black Hills to go to the sacred sites and fill our pipes. And at the time, my daughter was like 10 years old. So we went there, and we have a campsite, a very nice campsite. We liked it. We camped there before, so that would be our first site. We would fill our pipes. And then the following day, we would go to Bear Butte, and a few days later, we would go over to Devil's Tower, but the Lakota called it Gray Horn Butte. They also refer to it as Montotipila, Bear's Lodge. The important thing about this butte is that is where the first pipe came. They were the two warriors were in that area when the White Buffalo Calf woman brought the first pipe to us. They were up by Devil's Tower. So that's a very sacred site to us. But we wanted to make a fourth site. We thought, well, just 3, we need to have 4. Everything goes in 4 with Lakota. Let's go to another site. So we thought, well, we're going to go to Harney Peak. Well, on 2016, they changed the name to Black Elk Peak, which I thought was a great move because Harney was a pretty hard general on the Lakota, and he didn't, you know, for him, they were better off dead. He did not like the Lakota at all. It was very difficult for them to work with him. My family comes from that situation. My great-grandmother, Eliza, was just a baby on the battlefield of the Blue Water fight when Harney attacked the Lakota there with 600 of his cavalry under a truce, under a white truce. He still went in and he just killed as many people as he could, women and children. And she was just a baby on the field, and a soldier picked her up. And he gave her to the Miltons of Missouri. And they took her, apparently they took her to England, and they raised her there and educated her in England. So she came back here speaking Queen's English, but she was still an Indian to everybody. And it was very difficult for her in those days. But she came from the Blue Water fight, which was one of Harney's first battles with the Lakota. So we were going to go there. We knew it was somewhere around Sylvan Lake. Well, on our way, looking for the trailhead to Harney Peak, we ended up in this place called Needle's Eye, a circular drive about 70 feet in diameter parking lot with 2 entrances, one from the west between 2 granite monoliths and the other through a tunnel in the east. And we ended up there, and there was about 50 or 60 tourists running around, kids climbing all over the walls. And I thought, yeah, we got to do our pipes here. And I thought, but not here. You know, not with all these people around me. So we looked for some place to go, and we found a trail on the western exit of this parking lot, and it wound up the hill. So we started walking up this hill, and we finally got to this flat spot up there, and there was a large granite monolith up against its back. And we sat down next to this monolith, and we thought, oh, we'll just do our pipes here. And so we laid everything out, and we started cleaning stuff and smudging, and put our bowls together, and I went to draw some sage up through the pipe to purify the inside of it, and as I was starting to do it, the pipe plugged. And so did Devin's. Both of our pipes plugged, and we always clean them. Here's my cleaner. We always ram them through there and really clean those pipes, because it's very important that you clean your pipe before you do anything. But they plugged up, and I thought, well, what's different? And what was different is we had never been there before, and we didn't introduce ourselves. We didn't ask to be there. We didn't tell them why we were there. So we started apologizing and told them who we were and what we needed. We needed to be here to pray with them. And then I heard a voice, and this is where I start this from that part of the chapter. I heard a soft voice, "Hold a match over your bowl of your pipe and draw in." I did this, and the pipe cleared, and I blew out a puff of black smoke. Devin repeated the procedure with the same results, clearing his pipe as well. At this point, we felt confident and began filling our pipes. Just then, my daughter Samantha got up and began walking down the hill. My immediate thought was to tell her not to leave, when the voice said, "She will be all right, let her go." We finished filling the pipes and then smoked them in this strange place. As we were cleaning our pipes and putting things away, Samantha came back to the clearing. She had a little grin on her face, and when I asked where she had gone, she said, "I was walking down the hill and saw a 12 or 13-year-old boy walking up the trail. So I hid behind a large rock that had a small split. I could see him, but he could not see me, when something told me to roll a small stone down the trail. I did this, and the boy stopped, looked at the stone bouncing past him with some confusion. I had a feeling I should growl loudly, so I did. It was real funny to watch this boy running down the hill screaming and yelling for his mom. I guess the spirits of this place have a good sense of humor. Moreover, Samantha did prevent him from walking up on our pipe ceremony. We returned to our campsite, set up fire in the stone pit, ate dinner, and just sat back to enjoy the energy of this place before retiring for the evening. The following morning, Devin got up around 5 a.m., lit a fire in the stone pit, and prepared a pot of coffee. I was hoping to get a little more sleep, but gave up after 10 minutes of Devin's noisiness and then joined him. As for Samantha, she could sleep through a hurricane. It was just before dawn and quite cool that morning, so we sat around the fire while waiting for the coffee to boil. Sitting on the south side of the fire pit on a park bench, I warmed myself by the fire while Devin sat on a cooler on the north side of the pit. The fire pit was made of stones piled about 8 inches high in a circle of about 3 inches in diameter. 3 feet in diameter. Yeah, 3 inches, that'd be a small pit. Devin was eating a breakfast roll when he noticed a little sparrow sitting on the ground in the west about 10 feet away. Devin broke off a piece of his roll and threw it over the bird and said, "Hey, why don't you join us for breakfast, little guy?" The sparrow hopped over, ate the piece of roll, and then proceeded to walk to where I was sitting and stood between my feet with his back to me. I said, "This is a bizarre little bird." At that moment, he turned his head and looked into my eyes. His eyes were strange looking, and I commented they were like those of a grandfather, like the eyes of an old man. He turned his head to face the pit, moved up against my left foot, tucked his beak into his chest, and took a nap. While he was napping, I spoke with Devin about this weird behavior of this bird, taking care not to move my left foot. He had no fear of me or the hot fire burning just a couple feet away. I think he must have napped for about 15 minutes before waking up and then walking clockwise around the fire pit toward where Devin was sitting. When he arrived in the north end of the fire pit, he walked in between Devin's feet, turned his head, looked up into Devin's eyes. He sat looking at the bird and said, "This is a grandfather." Then the sparrow turned his head to face the pit and took another nap. It was not a long nap, maybe 5 minutes or so, before he hopped onto Devin's left foot. Devin was wearing black sneakers with one drop of red paint on the toe of the left shoe. The sparrow pecked at the red spot 2 times, looked up at Devin, and then hopped off, continuing to walk clockwise around the fire pit. On the south end of the pit was a flat stone, 1 inch thick, 4 inches wide, and 6 inches long, resting on the top of the pit with its long side pointing in toward the fire. For some reason, I picked the stone up and turned it so that the long side was in line with the circular pit. Now this is where things get bizarre. As the bird reached the south end of the pit where I was sitting, he began climbing up onto the top of the pit with a hot fire burning at its center. He then stepped onto the flat stone I had just repositioned and began hopping repeatedly, picking his left foot up, then his right foot, for a couple of minutes. As I watched this funny little dance, I thought to myself, if the stone was that hot, maybe he should get off of it. Only to remember I had just touched the stone myself and it was not hot. The sparrow continued hopping another 30 seconds or so before jumping backward off the pit. Once on the ground, he walked in between my feet and took another nap. This time it was a short nap, lasting less than a minute. He turned his head, looked up at me, and then began walking back toward the west of the pit, from whence he came. Just then, 2 robins flew in and landed 20 feet from us in the west. The sparrow ran up to them as if they were his parents, but they chased him away. He flew up and over the pit and disappeared into the east. Both Devin and I were at a loss for words. What in the world was that all about? We knew something had just played out, but were clueless as to its meaning. One point worth mentioning is when things act out in the ordinary, this is the time to pay attention. Spirits will use anything, including sparrow, to get your attention. The following day, we set out for Greyhorn Butte to spend a few days camping and taking our pipes to the west side of the butte for the last of our 4 pipe ceremonies. I always feel a little melancholy when I must leave the Black Hills, but I needed to get back to work and participate in the world of humankind. 1 month later, I was reading an article written by John Edgar Wideman for Modern Maturity. He had interviewed an American Indian about the reason for his Sundance. It was like a download of information. And then I understood what the sparrow was telling us. Devin and I must prepare to Sundance. A couple of weeks later, I spoke with 2 American Indian elders, Dr. Gillahan and Earl Mishingat, about the sparrow vision. They both confirmed that is exactly how they show you. Earl was helping to describe each movement of the sparrow. My response to him was, it is my intent to prepare for the rest of the year and then make the Sundance in July. I went on to say, piercing to the Sundance tree is not in my plan, but I would make the dance even at the ripe old age of 51. Earl said, do you remember when the bird pecked twice at that red spot in Devin's left sneaker? At the Sundance, you will apply 2 red spots of wet red pipestone dust onto your chest. That way the medicine man will know where to pierce you, insert the 2 wooden pins, and connect them to the harness hanging from the tree. When the sparrow jumped off the pit backward, he was showing you how to break free from the tree. Sitting there with a perplexed look on my face, I said, the Sundance would have been a lot more fun at 20 years old than starting to dance at 51. Funny, they spirits waited until now to give me the vision to start this dance. Earl just looked at me, smiled, and said, if you dance with all the energy you have to give, the Sundance will keep you young and strong. On the day the sparrow came to Devin and me, we just observed its strange behavior. If we had tried to reach down and pick it up, it would have flown away, and our vision to Sundance would have been lost to us. That's why it's so important. We weren't on Hanbleceya, we weren't on vision quest, we were just sitting by a fire. And they came and they told us what they wanted us to do. The following year, we went to Indiana, the Salt Creek Sundance, and and petitioned to dance 4 days. And my petition was accepted by the medicine man. And he was looking at me like, you know, such a young puppy here, fella. You know, you want 4 days? I said, yeah, 4 days. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, I'm going to hold you to 2. If you want to do 4, have at it. But I'm only going to hold you to 2. So he gave me a bye. Because if you say 4, you darn well better do 4. It's worse than the military. 4 days of sweat lodges, and then 4 days of sun dance. The arbor, during the 4 days of sweat lodges, they work on the arbor and get it ready. And the arbor is 120 feet in diameter, 8 feet wide, covered with pine boughs for shade for the support people. And the dancers dance out in the middle with a cottonwood tree that is cut on the 4th day of the sweat lodges, called Tree Day. And that tree is caught by the dancers and carried. They don't let it hit the ground. Weighs a couple thousand pounds. It's a big, big tree. Some of them are about that big around. And they have to be cut down with an axe. But before a dancer can touch the tree, a woman has to bless it. She takes piped stone dust, wet piped stone dust, and puts it on her hand. And she places the hand on the 4 corners. So the woman is the only one that can touch that tree, because a woman is the only one that can represent the sacred. The men can't do that. So once the woman has done that, then the men start cutting. All the dancers start chopping, taking turns chopping and chopping. And they have some ropes up in that tree, and as that tree comes down, they hold those ropes and bring it down slow, and then all the dancers will catch this tree and not let it hit the ground. We had like 70 dancers. Then we carry that tree back to the arbor and set it on stumps and tie the prayer ties around the base of it, leaving 6-foot clearance, so that's the part that's going to go in the ground. A hole is dug in the center of the arbor, 6 foot deep. And food is put in there, the buffalo heart and all the different things of the buffalo go in there for the tree. The tree is treated as a warrior, a fallen warrior. That's why we don't let it hit the ground. And then we tie our ropes in there after our flags and our ties are all wrapped around the base. It's very colorful. The sacred bundle is tied in. It's usually trees have a crotch in them, way up there, and the bundle is tied across that crotch, and our ropes are all just below that just below the crotch is where all the ropes are tied, and they're about maybe 35 feet, 40 feet up in the air. The ropes are 50, 60 feet long. And they span out, and in a given moment, everybody heaves, and that tree goes up. They're pulling on the ropes, and they're spreading out, and that tree will drop into that hole, and all the dirt's packed in around it. Tie our ropes up, and we're ready to start our dance the next day. The dancer cannot eat or drink water for 4 days. It's a tough dance. I'd read about it, I knew something about it, but until you actually do it, you find out what a tough, tough dance that is. I elected, you know, in the afternoon on the second day, during the noon break, I guess, they'll give you a little cup of sage tea. It's sacred medicine, a little cup of sage tea, and that's all you get for the next 24 hours. I elected to have nothing I was going to try to make all 4 days with no water, no food. And I crashed and burned about 48 hours later. I mean, I was hurting, and the medicine man, he sent women down with a nice cup of sage tea and said he will drink this, because he knew I'd reached my limit. And I pecked at that for about 2 hours, and because I wasn't going to drink it down. I wanted to just really savor that. And I tell you, until you've gone without water for 48 hours, you will never appreciate it as well afterwards. it is something that I'll never forget. But I danced that dance for 4 days, and on the 4th day, we laid down on the buffalo robe, and the medicine man put the pins in, and then hooks them up to our ropes. And odd as it seems, I was standing in the south next to the drum, and Devin was standing in the north, hooked up to that tree, the same place as we were when we received the spiral vision. And there was no way we'd know how to hook those ropes up then. We just tied them into the tree. Dancers would help us to make sure they wouldn't slip, but we didn't set that up, but that's exactly how it was. He was standing in the north, and I was standing in the south, and we were hooked to that tree. Now, you might wonder, well, what's all this piercing about? Why do the Lakota do that? We're the only ones that do that. Ojibwe Sundance, but they don't pierce. And other tribes the same, but the Lakota pierce to that tree. And the way it was explained to me was that when you dance for 4 days, you're dancing for the people so they won't have to suffer. You do all the suffering so the people won't have to. And you pray hard for them that they'll have a good life, a good year. And then when it's all said and done, you connect yourself to the umbilical cord. And they said there's 3 ways to come off that tree. You can run, jump backwards, pow. You can snap off real hard, or you can just back up and pull off. And I chose just to back up, because they say when you run back, it's a violent death, and your rebirth is hard. Because a part of you dies every time you do that. You leave a part of you behind, and a new part emerges every time you do that. So I thought, well, I got enough problems. I don't need a hard life. So I just backed up and pulled off the tree. And that first year was real hard, because I was pulling, and this one breaks and this one sticks. And I mean, my feet are slipping, and I'm just giving it everything I got. And the medicine man signals to his helpers, go get him. And I know what they're going to do. They're going to grab you and pull you off the tree. Well, no, I'm not going to let them do that. So I managed to finally break just as I get up there. And then they trim because it tears the flesh a little bit, just a little flap. They don't get the muscle, by the way. They simply make a pinch like that and pierce through the pinch of the skin. They don't go into the muscle. This old medicine man told me, Quentin, don't you turn your toes. He says, just pray up the tree, but don't squeeze your toes down. And so I concentrated on that. And I figured out what he was doing later on. He was getting me to concentrate on not squeezing my toes down, going, ah. So I would always tell the guys I support and that I brought in and sponsored, I said, don't squeeze your toes, guys. Just don't do that. Don't grimace. Just take it. And they spent so much time concentrating on that they get through it every time. But I did that for 21 years. The first 4 years as a sun dancer, and then after that I was a helper. So I could eat again and drink, because I had to stay strong in order to work with the dancers and help them. This was the tree that I danced at 18 years ago. I mean, the 18th tree we had put in. So it was 3 years ago, or 4 years ago now, but that's when that rainbow fell in behind that tree. Because I was helping the medicine man put pins in guys, I thought, well, if I'm gonna hook guys up, then I'm gonna hook up myself every year too. If I don't hook somebody up, I won't do that. I'll just take some flesh off the arm, but I won't hook up to the tree. But I did that for the next 18 years, is hooking guys up and helping them to make their commitments to Creator. Now, it's not like Wakantanka is saying, okay, cough it up, guys. I want that flesh. It's not necessary. It's what we as dancers give because it is all we have to give. It is ours to give. Clothing, part of creation. Money, part of creation. The only thing a dancer has to give Wakantanka for the blessings that we ask for is our suffering and our flesh, and that's why that's done. So that's the only reason I was willing to do that. Any other reason, forget it. You know, tough guy stuff, no, I'm not interested. You know, to get my chest all scarred up over that, but for the sacred, it's worth it for me, and I had no problem doing that once I understood why we pierced to the tree. Black Elk stood on top of that mountain, Black Elk Peak now, and he looked out during that vision, and he saw a hoop as white as daylight and starlight. And he said that hoop was made of many hoops of his people coming to that center, to that sacred tree. This tree represents that tree of life that Black Elk speaks of, that the people come into this hoop. Our medicine man said he came to this Sundance because, Vernal Cross, because this was like Black Elk's vision down in Indiana, because it was made up of different people from different nationalities. We had people from Europe. We had people of dark skin and light skin. We had Buddhists there that were coming to be doctored. And that's what Black Elk's vision is about, is all peoples coming together at this hoop, white as daylight and starlight. It's so important. Because at the last thing Wakantanka told him is, hundreds will be sacred and hundreds will be flames. The flames represent a person's anger, jealousies, hate, fear. It consumes them. The sacred is people who can choose to reach out and help somebody else, to find that center, that sacred center. No particular religion, because no religion can be without that spiritual side of us. And it says that's who the sacred are. The flames are those who are consumed by their angers and their frustration in life. But the thing is, Fast Horse told me when I first met him nearly 30 years ago now, he says that the negative force is so much stronger than the positive force. Hundreds will be sacred, hundreds will be flames, is this. And that's where we need to get to. And that's what that vision's about. That's what they're saying is going to happen. That we're going to come into balance. Now, there's going to be plenty of people with attitude, but if you work with your NiyaԻ and your NiyaÌ and your ToÄ²wakaÅ, you'll know who you want to hang with and who you don't. And all of us have that same potential. I write a number of places. I insert a lot of my experiences into this book alongside of Black Elk as I'm describing what he's going through, to help give you some understanding of what visions are. Anybody here is capable of that. You just have to believe it, and you have to be open to it. Not every crow that comes into my world has anything to say, but they do occasionally bring me a message, and I know when they come. And then I know when they're just being crows. You know, like, you know what the crow in the tree is doing when the one on the ground is eating like a roadkill? He's the lookout. If a car is coming, he goes, caw, caw. Sometimes they're just crows. But sometimes they're more than just crows. Sometimes they're allies. My allies are red ants and ticks.
Oh, I have someplace you should camp this summer. I'm sorry.
I literally, you know, instead of having the tiger, you know, lion, tigers, and bears, I get ticks and red ants. But they're my allies, and they taught me so much. They changed my life. And the tick is the spider. So I've always had the spider medicine. I just never worked with it. And when Jim Gillihan, just before he passed away, he carried the gentle spider. Tomôեৰীষ্টe. And he asked me to carry it now. He wanted me to carry the red, and I've had that since 2001. And it's quite the companion. I get in more trouble because I tend to say things that they just pop out, and oh man. But that's how the spider does it, and he's the trickster. He gets people all riled up, but he's here to teach. Not, and so is the Hayoka, the contraries. They're here to teach us, and then they'll say something like, "Well, you're an idiot." What he really is trying to tell you is you're pretty smart, but if you don't have a lot of confidence, you might feel like an idiot after that. So those things are just the stuff that our Lakota spiritual way life is made up of. People trying to help each other, and that's what it's really about. I think we're about there. I like to go through questions too, and there's no dumb question, I can tell you that. Do we have time?
Yes, we've got time for questions. If people have a question, please raise your hand and I'll bring you the microphone so that we can record the question as well as the answer. It looks like there's somebody already sent in a question. The question that somebody wrote in is, what are the symbols on the necklace of the speaker?
It's called the medicine wheel. It represents the 4 directions. The red road and the black road. This would be the universe. It's the center, it's the dwelling place of Wakantanka. And we also make up that 7th direction. We are at the center of the universe, no matter where you are. So we are at the center with Wakantanka. I mean, it's as close as you can get. We are a part of that. Another question right here.
You had said something about there being 6 grandfathers. Now, is Mother Earth a grandfather?
Well, any of them can be grandfathers or grandmothers. We use the term grandfather not to try to establish a male-female thing, but it's a term of respect, but grandmother is as well. So Unchimaka in Black Elk's vision, he refers to that as a grandfather. And that grandfather shows him that he will have he will live to see 4 generations. But Unchimaka Makaina is Mother Earth. In one of the things that Wakantanka is telling Black Elk is that you will have one mother and one father. One father, one mother. Because we're all born of the earth. Mitakoye Oyasin, all my relatives. That includes all things. And if you break us down into smallest parts, we're all made of the same stuff. And they knew that. So when we see a tree, we see a relative. And if we treat our relatives with respect, then maybe that tree has something to tell us, or a rock. Our oldest grandfathers, NiyaԻ, the oldest grandfathers, are the stone people. And they say all things have a soul. So they have that respect that it has a soul, and it's not ours to take. If I need some sage, I pray about it, I leave some tobacco, and then I cut the sage. But I don't take all the sage. I just take a little bit from here and a little bit from there. So it's available all year long, and it comes back next year because I just cut it. I don't pull it up by the roots because I have to respect that's my relative. And if I respect it that way, it'll do what I need it to do. It'll plug this pipe. But if I don't respect it, then I've already put the negative in here. See? So if I have that respect for that grandfather, and I put that sage in there, then it's going to help me. But if I just abuse that, then that's what I put in this chanupa. That's why they think about it that way.
I have one other question that somebody wrote in. What can we do to bring back the intuition and attention to the original ways?
Could you repeat that?
What can we do to bring back the intuition and attention to the original ways?
Okay.
Maybe what can we do to bring back or facilitate more intuition?
Yeah, the intuition, the working with our soul parts, our guardians. First, you have to recognize you have them available. They're just there. Now, whether you believe that your soul divided into 4 parts, you know, it's not as important as knowing you have guardians, your aura. All things have those guardians. Like I told you, that buck with the 18 points, he didn't get that from walking around with his head between his legs eating grass all day. He got it because he'd walk into an area and something would tell him, you need to get out of there. And there's a hunter downwind from him about ready to pop him. But he knows it, and he's gone. And the guy goes, oh, man. His intuition, that guardian told him, you got to go, you got to go. And he listened, and he left. It's the ones that don't pay attention to get popped. They're the ones that become the feast. So we all have that same ability. We just have to recognize that and then start paying attention a little more, not out of fear, because that's not what it's about. It's not about being afraid of everything, but it's just about listening. And the voice I hear isn't so much a voice, it's more of a... Charles Fasthorse put it pretty good. It's like a vibration. And it comes from, say, a tree or a rock or a deer or a lion or whatever, a crow. The vibration comes, and the NiyaԻ picks it up and turns it into a thought, a profound thought that just comes out of nowhere. It's very solid, very strong. And so you're using these to communicate with these relatives. And it's about respecting. If you can't respect your relative, you're not going to have a communication. It's cut off. If there's no respect, communication is severed. So by respecting these things, it opens that door. And it's not about going around hugging trees, but it's about respecting it and seeing it for what it is. It's a life. That stone is a life. I don't just pick a stone up and say, oh, I like this, and walk off with it. And I got to pray about it, and I got to leave tobacco. So that's how you bring back those ways. You're being respectful. You don't just throw trash on the ground to be throwing it on the ground. You see something, you pick it up. You're respecting Mother Earth. Even that trash has a place it should go, not necessarily on the ground like that. So we're trying to try to be respectful to these things so we can open those doors. If you and I have a respect, then our communication opens up. But if we don't respect each other, nothing I say is going to change your opinion of me or my ideas. So it all starts with each one of us, and then it extends outward. Expands outward to the littlest things. If I am walking down the street and I see a little ant running, I'll step over it or step around it. I won't just step on it. I mean, the accidents happen, but I always try to avoid that. I won't just step on something to be stepping on it. Ginger wants me to go pull some weeds. Oh, God, my relatives. You know. But sometimes you have to control that. You know, it's your environment, and then you pray about it. And, sorry, guys. But I don't do it without thinking about it. I had to remove some scrub trees so her garden would get sunlight. And I thought about it, and I worried about it, and I thought about it, and I finally went and did it. But I didn't do it. I wasn't happy doing it, you know, because the way I saw it, I took a life. And, but doesn't mean I'm not going to respond. I'm not going to not do what I have to do. If a bear's charging at me, I'm going to get real mad and pop him in the nose, you know. Relative or not, we're not communicating. So I have to, it's just what it is, you know. It's about learning how to communicate, how to respect each other in all things. Yeah, back there. Right back.
Okay.
I'll get right to you.
A lot of gratitude for you being here. Thank you.
Oh.
In regards to the sacredness of the pipestone, if I were to come across some of that, as I have, and I don't own any, what would be typical of if I were to pick some of that up in whatever reason it came into my path? How would I respond to that and respect it? My respect was I left it there, but what
Where did you find it?
I believe a vendor was selling it.
Oh, okay, yeah. Sometimes they make effigies with it, like little turtles. They'll carve a little turtle with it, or they make little effigies with a pipestone.
It was actually a pipe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah, people, in the old day, they just, if you needed a pipe maker to make you a pipe, you might give him a couple of buffalo robes, maybe a horse. Today you give him a horse, he's got to feed it. He'd probably like the buffalo robe, so. But that's what they did, they exchanged. It was always an exchange. And so I get a little funny when people tell me, you know, money. Well, that's the new exchange. If a medicine man does something for me, I'll give him a handshake. I won't wave it in his face, but I'll fold it up and I'll give him a handshake. I go to an elder's home and I learn from them. I fold something up and I give them a handshake and thank them for their time. Because that's the new exchange. Giving them horses, they got to feed them. But giving them money, they can pay their bills. So I don't get too bent out of shape when somebody bought a pipe. Sometimes that's how they have to come to you. But when you take a chanupa, it's a lifetime commitment. Once you pick this up, you can never lay it down again. Once you wake that chanupa up, it's a part of your arm. And as you grow, it grows, and it learns. And when you need some help and you pick this up, you'll get that help, especially if you had a good respect for this Chanupa. I've carried this same Chanupa now for almost 30 years. And somebody shows me a really, really nice one, horses carved, I say, oh, very nice. But if they tried to give me that in place of this, I'd tell them, no. This is my Chanupa. It's a rough eagle claw holding the bowl. But I've seen Chanupas with an elaborate eagle claw holding the bowl. But this is mine. This is my brother, my sister. Started out as a little baby, and now it's grown up.
There was one other question that somebody sent in.
Somebody in the very back.
Yeah, but somebody wrote in, can you speak about thunder beings?
Yeah. ToÄ≠wakaÅ, thunder being people. They're very powerful. They consume the negative. So when we go into a nipi, we throw cedar on the stones, and the smoke comes up. Cedar is companion to the thunder being, to the wakaÅ. And they come into the lodge. And if there's some negative energies that need to be taken out, they'll take that negative energy. They'll remove it. A person goes in with fear. Fear is the root of all negative force. Courage is the root of all positive force. If you go into our sweat lodge and you have a lot of fear, you need to let it go. Because if you don't let it go, you leave. And they do. And then Lakota say, that's okay. That's okay. You don't have to feel bad about it. You needed to leave. What did you learn? Maybe the next time they come in, they stay a little bit longer. Next time they stay a little longer, and pretty soon that fear is not there anymore. I had a person that used to be claustrophobic. I couldn't even close the door. She was out of there. But she kept coming back. And today she's no longer claustrophobic. See, she learned something from that. And it's okay if she left a number of times, but eventually she stayed. So those are the thunder beings. They say they fly in the clouds with big wings and lightning coming out of their eyes. I actually saw that at Bear Butte. Because my daughter saw that thunderstorm coming, and she wanted to go back to the cars because she's afraid of thunder and lightning. So we were walking back, and I thought, oh, it'd be nice if these thunder beings could show these kids who they were. And all of a sudden, the clouds started changing, and one wing came over us about a half mile, and the other one went over the butte. And it was every feather in that wing, including the long tip feathers spread out. And as it came backward over the butte, as a Heyoka would do, everything backward, and lightning coming out of the area of where the head would be. But all we saw were the wings. And then a little gentle rain, and it was over. So yeah, they exist. And that's a spirit. But you should always respect them. I don't go out and stand in the open field with my finger up. Even though I feel like I have a relationship with them, I have too much respect to do that. And when our Ginger will confirm this, whenever a thunderstorm comes, I go out on the porch and I get my cigar and I have my conversations with them. Not as a Heyoka or anything, but because I feel like I have a relationship. And I just talk to them. Hey, I got these big oak trees here, you're going to be careful of my grandfathers. They've been around a long time. And the winds won't blow so hard, maybe, and the lightning doesn't strike my trees. And it's just, I feel like I have that relationship. Anybody can have that relationship. They just have to think about it for a while and let that fear go. Respect, but you don't need to have the fear.
Okay.
I know that all trees are sacred, and you had mentioned the cottonwood, and you just mentioned cedar. Are there any other specific ones sacred to the Lakota?
You know, the red osier dogwood, the red willow, that's our herb.
Right.
The cottonwood is the tree of choice when it comes to Sundance. But when we, and this is weird, because I mean, I had guys from Canada, I had Lakota elders with us, and we went to select this tree. Oh, everybody thought that was the most beautiful cottonwood they'd ever seen. Look at that fork, you know. See the little fork right here? It was about 30 feet tall. Had a nice feather look to it, and so that's the tree we're going to get. We did too. The women touched it, and we chopped it down. We carried it back to the arborist, set it in the hole, and everybody's just sitting. And here comes this leaf. Bunk. It was a maple. We thought we had a cottonwood, and here's this guy from Canada, and all these elders around me, Lakota elders, going, "Yeah, beautiful cottonwood," and it was a maple. But look what the rainbow did for it. See, so all trees are sacred. But that was funny.
So that's a maple in the picture?
That's a maple tree.
That's perfect.
Thank you for your appearance. I'm honored to hear you speak.
Oh.
I have a question. What kind of belief do Lakota people have on reincarnation?
Oh,
Thank you.
good. That has to do with these 4 parts of the soul. And I guess I can carry that just a little bit further. When you get ready to make your journey to go home, the Nagi hangs out in the area that it enjoyed being around and the people. That's why some people will say, you know, I felt Aunt Susie around me today, because Aunt Susie's Nagi is hanging out. If they stay around, we call them Wanagi, ghosts. The ToÄ°wakaÅ and the NiyaԻ travel together. They stay here for 1 year, and then they make their journey and they start traveling. That's why we never throw a name around just to be throwing it around. There's many a medicine man that have gone that I've known that I don't throw their name around unless I need them. If I throw their name around, they come back. So just about the time they get there, oh man, back they come. So the NiyaԻ comes back and it'll help us. But then we have to let it get back on its journey again. Sometimes we're doing a doctoring or a sweat lodge for somebody, and that spirit will come in and help us. And then he goes, and he's right back with the ToÄ°wakaÅ, and they continue. So, I mean, it's a constant this. So we don't throw the name around any more than we need to. If I am going to use a name, I make it clear to them, hey, I'm just talking about you. You don't need to come. So they don't feel like they need to be here. I made a huge mistake at the Custer State Park Visitor Center. I was doing 2 talks there last summer, and they had 2 chairs on each side of this table. And the guy says, oh, you want me to take that chair, that spare chair? And I said, no, you can leave that. Black Elk could probably use that chair. As I was talking about him, I just felt his presence, and I was talking about how sad he was when he thought he had failed, when in fact he had not failed. He planted the seed of that tree when he gave his vision to NiyaԻ. If he had taken that vision to the grave, we wouldn't be talking here today about it. But when he gave NiyaԻ his vision, he planted the seed that would bring that tree back. He gave me the opportunity to talk about it. So when that happened, I got choked up and the tears started rolling. I'm going, oh man, come on. And I mean, it was so hard for me to talk because the energy was so powerful at that point. And I invited him in. So that was okay. I just should have thought about it before I did that, and then it wouldn't have been such a surprise. But yeah, so they travel. And when they get to Heaven's Gate, the ToÄ°wakaÅ gives his sacred sacred name, and goes in to be with Wakantanka. And the NiyaÌ goes back to the north and waits to be reincarnated. It takes 4 generations for those spirits to make that journey. And at the end of that 4th generation, when the ToÄ°wakaÅ goes in, the NiyaԻ goes back, and then he goes in, enters the child's mouth, divides into 4 parts, and starts the process all over again. That's what the Lakota say happened. When Wovoka said, the white man will disappear, the buffalo will return, and the ancestors will come back, he wasn't wrong. He was just had the wrong year. 4 generations would have to go by. And the white man disappeared. The thinking. We're never going to do what they did back then. We're never going to just go in and kick somebody out of their home and take their lands like they were doing back in the 1800s and 17 to 1600s. Today, the white man has changed. And that's what Wovoka saw, but he didn't understand. He thought they would just disappear. The physical is as much a part of the 4 directions: the white, the red, the yellow. The white man, the black man, the red man, the yellow man. The 4 parts of the human race, the basic parts. So it's not going to go away. It's the thinking had to change, and that's what happened. And the buffalo have returned. And this is 4 generations, and the people are coming back now. And that's one reason we're thinking the way we are, I think, because our spirits are different now. We get different information. Does that help? So that's what happens there. Anyone else?
No other question? Okay.
Can you speak on Wallace, Black Elk?
I knew Wallace a little bit. He is not a Black Elk. He had a vision that he should take the name, so he took the name Black Elk because he had a vision that said he should do that, but he's not an actual Black Elk. He's not from Nicholas Black Elk's family. I know, well, we know the Black Elk family. We were very close to his Black Elk's granddaughter, Olivia Black Elk, sweet, sweet lady. And she's gone home lately. All the old ones are leaving us, so it's kind of sad. But yeah, I think he had a lot to do with some good teachings, but I never really got to know him that well. I was with him a couple times, and that's all I can. Did you know Wallace?
No.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're done with questions, it looks like. What about a hand of appreciation?
Thank you.
Now, we do have some of Quentin's books here, and they are available for purchase, and I'm sure he'll be more than happy to sign them for you. And just before I let you go and do that, I want to make a couple of announcements. First is that beginning tomorrow evening, we're going to have with us Dr. Eben Alexander, who has been here a couple of times. He's quite well known. He was New York Times best-selling author of Proof of Heaven, which came out probably about 4 years ago. And he spoke here at the Summer National Convention about that time, and has been back for the last 2 or 3 years to come and speak here, as well as lead an all-day workshop. So he and Karen Newell, with whom he works, are coming tomorrow. And Eben and Karen have written a new book, and so it's just been released. And we're going to do a book signing event here tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. If you are able to come, please do. If you're able to help by telling your friends to come, please do. We'd like to get as good a turnout as possible. It is a free event, so everybody is welcome tomorrow evening. Eben will speak a little. He's got a really compelling story regarding his near-death experience and the work that he's currently doing together with Karen in order to facilitate opening consciousness and experience some of these more refined levels. The name of the book is Living in a Mindful Universe, a Neurosurgeon's Journey into the Heart of Consciousness. So please come tomorrow evening if you can. And then on Saturday, Eben and Karen will be leading an all-day workshop. And the workshop is part lecture and part experiential. They use the sacred acoustics, which is a form of sound meditation. So there's periods where they present and lecture during the day, and then there's periods of this, actually an immersion in this particular vibrational sound meditation, and that many people experience quite altered states of consciousness through the aid of that. And Eben, the one thing is, many people have had near-death experiences, but the interesting thing is that Eben Alexander says that by using this particular form of meditation, he has and is able to reattain those very refined levels that, was such an not earth-shattering, but life-changing experience for him. So it's really compelling and very interesting to hear him speak about it and, of course, to experience it. I invite you to come to the workshop if you're able to. The workshop starts at 9 a.m. and it goes through to 4:30 p.m. You can register on our website if you want. Just go to our website and look under events. So it's on the front page, so you'll see that you can register there. And again, if you can certainly want to come just for tomorrow evening to hear him first, you're welcome to do that. And the last announcement I have is for Thursday next week's lecture will be on the other side of eternity. And that will be by Danelis Valcarcel, who is known to many of you here, or Valcarcel. She works here and works in the library as well as in other areas and has spoken here on numerous occasions. So please come next week to hear about the other side of eternity. Thank you all for coming this evening. Please stay and have refreshments and, of course, get a book signed by Quentin. Thank you.